What's going on, guys? Graham G.S. Matthews here, back with another WrestleRant book review. Last month we talked about Hardcore Holly's The Hardcore Truth. Today we're talking about Ronda Rousey's Our Fight book that was just released last month. And that's the biggest difference. The Hardcore Holly book was actually better than this book, I thought. That one was released over a decade ago. This one was a new book. This was just released last month. You're probably wondering, how did it take you so long to read the Hardcore Holly one, but then get to this one within a month? Well, that's because I listened to the Audible version for both books. We're probably not going to do another book review for any time at any point in the foreseeable future here on the channel, because I just don't have a chance to read physically, although I would love to when I want to. I just don't have a chance. The Audible books are easier for me, and I had 2 free credits, so I used one of the Hardcore Holly book, and I used the other one of the Ronda Rousey book. I actually own the Becky Lynch book. That will probably be the other book review that I do with the next one, hopefully. Might not be for a while, heads up. But I own that physical book. I didn't want to buy Ronda Rousey's book. She actually did a book tour here in the Northeast around WrestleMania. I may have bought a physical book because she did a book signing here in Connecticut, actually. But I was already in Philadelphia for Mania weekend at that point, so I didn't get to go. But I did check out the book. It was a very interesting, I want to say read, but I didn't actually read it. I listened to it. It was an interesting book indeed. I wanted to check it out solely for the fact that she talks a lot about her WWE run, and I got to give credit to Rick Ucchino of Cage Side Seats. He's an awesome dude, one of my friends, one of my better friends in the wrestling media business. He interviewed Ronda right before Mania about the book, and she had a lot to say. So that big shoot interview, quote unquote, that she did was with Rick. Check out his interview with her from Cage Side Seats, like I said, from late March, early April. They did a tremendous job of talking about the book and her time in WWE, why she fucking hated that second run, and even the first run she had issues with. But she talks a lot about both runs here in the book. My top takeaway from that interview, and the quotes that came out from that interview, are she has a lot of ill will towards Vince and John Laurinaitis and Bruce Pritchard. She has made that quite clear in interviews and on social media. But does she have that same, not hatred, obviously, there's no reason for her to hate this person, but does she still have that same resentment towards Triple H, for example? In the second run of the company, Triple H was running the company for the better part of that run. I know Vince was never really gone, but it was pretty clear the creative direction of the company, at least in late 2022, Vince was not having a very heavy say creatively in the company. Early 2023, different story. But in late 2022, it did not seem like he was overly involved in the creative process of the company. Not overly involved, at least to a very meaningful degree. Not until later on in 2023. Ronda Rousey was there at that point. Did she have as much of an issue with Triple H as she did with Vince McMahon? So we'll get into that. That was kind of like my top takeaway from the book. But she talks a lot more about than just wrestling in the book. She wrote another book about 10 years ago, probably about her upbringing. This book covered a lot more than I thought it would, actually. It covers her UFC career, her entire UFC career. So I don't know really what that first book would have covered. Probably her early life and whatnot. She talks about her personal life. She talks about being close with her mom. She talks about meeting her current husband, Travis Brown, another former UFC fighter, and their relationship, and how at one point, a lot of this I didn't know because I haven't followed Ronda Rousey's career that closely, at least until she came to WWE. But she mentioned actually at one point that Travis Brown's ex-wife accused him of adultery, cheating, whatever, with, I don't know if it was with Ronda, or accused him actually of domestic abuse as well. And they ended up getting it cleared up, and I don't really think it went anywhere. But that was an interesting story. Ronda was in the picture for that. That was after they went public with their relationship. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. I don't know. I don't know what the end result of it was, but I don't think Travis Brown did any time or was canceled, quote unquote, for that, because I haven't heard anything else about it since, and that was a decade ago apparently. Didn't hear about it then, only heard about it now through the book. So I thought that was interesting. But she talks about their relationship, mentioning, and I'm going to go all over the place here, all over the place, but she mentioned, having her baby in 2021, that would have been right. I mean, she did leave in 2019 from WWE, and the idea was that she would go and have kids and get pregnant and whatever, and that was her whole plan. She does say that here. I remember when she came back to the company, or when she first came to the company in 2018, the word was, she signed a 3-year deal that would have expired in 2021, I think. So she signed in 2018, would have expired in 2021. She makes no mention of that in this book. It seems like the original idea was always for her to work from WrestleMania 34 to WrestleMania 35. She actually says that she was only supposed to be there originally until like SummerSlam or probably Survivor Series. But during that meeting with Triple H and Vince, when she first agreed to come in, they had told her, we kind of do year-round stories. It's like our season, from Mania to Mania, so why not work that? And she agreed to do it. But even before coming to WWE, she talks a lot about her UFC career, like I said, losing for the first time. That's actually what starts off the book, is that first loss that she suffered and what she was feeling in that moment, how low she felt, how depressed she was, how she was pretty much on the brink of suicide. She's even said in the book, I didn't want to be here anymore, in so many words, which was very interesting. So clearly at that point, she didn't take losing well. She thinks very highly of herself. I know there was stuff that came out recently from, who was it? The former WWE Raw announcer, Jimmy Smith, I believe. He had made a comment how Ronda never gave a shit during her time in the UFC about like the camera people and the people that would interview her. Like the smaller people, she was very rude towards them. I don't think she ever rebutted those words or those claims from Jimmy Smith. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with what she said in this book. But what I'm saying is that she has a very high opinion of herself. And yeah, is she one of the greatest fighters of all time? It's not for me to say because I'm not a hardcore UFC MMA guy. She had a lot of success over a very short period of time and became a big box office draw. She did movies. She was a pop culture icon for a little while there, doing the Expendables and Fast and Furious movies and shit like that. She did do Mile 22, which fucking bombed, and I saw that movie and it sucked. It was supposed to set up a sequel. We haven't gotten a sequel, and that was 6 years ago. It was just not a good movie. It was all right, and her role in it was very forgettable. But anyway, what was I going to say? But yeah, she really popped off there during her UFC days, even doing the appearance at WrestleMania, actually, in 2015 at 31 with Triple H and Rock and Stephanie and whatnot. But when she suffered that first loss, she really went off, I don't want to say went off the deep end, but she really took that not well. Because she had been so successful for so long and been undefeated for so long that she probably thought she was invincible. I mean, no one goes undefeated forever, not everyone, but, some people obviously have in sports, but Ronda Rousey was not one of those people. She was fighting pretty routinely, and she eventually lost I think it was the Holly Holm fight, right? Either that was the first loss or the second loss. But I think she mentioned as well, going into the second fight, not the rematch, it wasn't a rematch against the same woman. She had another fight, the comeback fight, in late 2016. And she mentioned going into it that she had to change everything about what she felt went wrong going into that first fight. Like the drama or my mouth guard was off and all this other sort of potential excuses as to why she lost. She eliminated, she says, every single one of those factors and she still lost. And not only did she still lose, she lost decisively and quickly. In 90 fucking seconds in that comeback fight. And she knew even at that point she was done. Dana White apparently asked her a couple months later, hey, you willing to come back? She said, no, I'm done fighting. And she stuck by it too, because when Brock was done fighting in the UFC, because he lost, he had diverticulitis is how it's pronounced actually, I fucked that up. When he had that in 2010 or whatever it was, he, had the comeback fight and he lost. And then I think he had another comeback fight in late 2011 and he lost that too. Unless there was only one comeback fight, but he lost at least 2 or 3 different fights. And it was at that point that he was like, I'm done. He ended up coming back to MMA for the Mark Hunt fight in 2016. Obviously ruled a no contest due to the whole steroid thing and whatever they detected on the drug test. But he at least came back. He had the itch to come back, and there were talks for years after that. And they even teased him doing more UFC fights in 2017, in 2018, in 2019. And it never happened. It's not going to happen. He's not fighting again. Ronda Rousey, I don't want to say to her credit, because it doesn't really even matter if she goes back or not, but she never went back. It didn't really seem like, at least in this book, she expressed interest in fighting again. She knew that chapter of her career was over. When that ended, another one opened. So she did start to pursue wrestling because she saw Shayna Baszler doing it and saw how much fun that she was having on the indies. She got signed by WWE in late 2017. By that point, it seemed like the wheels were already in motion in late 2017 for Ronda to come in. So it wasn't just that Shayna got signed. I'm sure WWE signed Shayna knowing that they could certainly secure Ronda as well, and they did, obviously, by early 2018. They knew a couple weeks out. I mean, it wasn't planned a long time out, but it seemed like she knew in late 2017, early 2018 that she was coming in. Because, I mean, if you think to yourself, like, oh, would plans have changed if Ronda didn't come in? Not really, because it's not like Ronda, which a lot of people thought could happen, and I did too, because I was at the pay-per-view where she debuted. Some people thought, oh, maybe she'll debut in that Women's Rumble and win the whole thing. That's the only reason why they're doing it. No, she wasn't even in the match. She did debut on that show, and she did call out, all the champions and whatever. She didn't even fight for a championship in Mania. She was involved in that debut match alongside Triple H and Stephanie and Kurt Angle in that tag team match. And it was an amazing match, and she mentioned that, which I'll get to in a second as well. But it's not as if she came in and immediately got a title shot. No, did she take a spot away from someone else? What I would love to know, actually, is if Ronda did not come back in early 2022, and she had always planned to come back in early 2022. That was not a last-minute thing. It seemed like a last-minute thing, reportedly, because reports didn't come out that she was due back until, literally the week of the Rumble. Days out from the Rumble is when it was reported that she was probably returning and winning, and that's exactly what happened. But for that second run, it seemed like she had it set in her head, oh, if I get pregnant now, if I have the baby here, I can come back in time. Because she was not coming back to WWE until she had that baby. She actually went through the detailed process went through the detailed story of having a miscarriage, which is really unfortunate. But again, I'm all over the place. I apologize. Back to 2018. She comes in, has the debut match. She talks about that, how great it was, because it was a great match. It was one of the best debut matches I've ever seen. She did exponentially well. But like Becky said recently, it's not that Ronda wasn't cut out for wrestling, but I think people kind of, and myself included, got an idea that Ronda may have been better than she actually was at that point. That match, for as good as it was, part of why it was so good was because they rehearsed it to shit. They rehearsed it over and over and over, as did, Macho Man and Steamboat. You could say the same thing about that match. Logan Paul, same thing. I don't know if Logan Paul still does this, but I know for a while he was rehearsing his matches with his opponents ahead of time because they didn't want to fuck up and they wanted to make sure they got it right. You can't do that every single time. The difference between Logan Paul and Ronda Rousey, and I know she takes a shot at him in the book saying, oh, I didn't get special treatment like Logan Paul. And he denied that, and he was pretty nice in his response. Nicer than I thought he would be, actually. The difference between Ronda and Logan, to Ronda's credit, was that when Ronda came in, she was a full-timer. She did have the debut match at Mania, and her next match was at Extreme Rules, and then her next match was at SummerSlam. I mean, she had a match on Raw right before that. So she was a quote-unquote part-timer there for a little while, but after that, she was a pretty regular member of the Raw roster. She was wrestling on Raw. She was defending the championship on Raw. She was fighting on B pay-per-views. She wasn't just fighting like in the big pay-per-views like Logan Paul does. I mean, Logan Paul's had all of one SmackDown match so far. That's it. And he's been with the company for a few years now. Ronda Rousey, in her first run, in the first year alone, she worked a lot of Raw matches. All the B pay-per-views, including Australia, which apparently was the same place where she lost in 2015, I think, which is kind of crazy. That it worked out that way. But, she worked Evolution. She headlined that show. She did Super Showdown. She did Hell in the Cell. She did all the fucking pay-per-views. TLC. She worked all those pay-per-views. So, to her credit, again, she did the work. She put it in. And she worked the house shows, too. I remember I was at a house show in Hartford in late 2018, and she worked that show, too. It was like a triple threat with her, Alexa Bliss, and someone else. I don't remember who it was, but she had a triple threat on that show, too. And again, she was good. She wasn't bad. But she talks a lot about, oh, if I was given more time, my matches could have been better and all this other shit. She said the same thing about the Shotzi match. Again, personally, I'm not in the business, so it's tough for me to say. I totally understand that. I don't think it works that way. Now, with WWE, yes, it would be nice if the performers had more of a heads up of what they're doing, when they're doing it, how much time they have and shit like that, to help them prepare. I don't think any company really works that smoothly where nothing ever changes. And my point is, with live television, I think AEW deals with the same issue. I'm sure TNA has that issue. Matches get cut, matches get added, people get hurt, shit happens. Plans change. I know they say that all the time, oh, plans change. It's true, though. Stuff like that happens. You can't expect for every fucking match, you're going to get the chance to either plan it out, have the time they promised you. I mean, it's always going to get cut. And there is an issue with the women in WWE specifically, where they always give them shorter matches. That is absolutely an issue. I'm not denying, I'm not disagreeing with her on that. They do shortchange the women, especially more so in her second run than the first run. In the first run, they did give them more time, knowing that Ronda Rousey was there. The second time around, when she left, That was kind of like the decline of the women's division in WWE. Still a lot of talent, but they did not prominently feature a lot of those women until Ronda came back. And even then, they did not prominently feature the women. But again, back to what I was originally saying, she expects her to have creative input in every step. Now, I don't think that was ever going to actually happen, especially when you're having matches all the time. They booked her fairly well, but that first run especially, I mean, they booked her extremely well. She was never going to have creative input every step of the way when she was working every fucking match that she did. If she only did a couple things a year, then it's like, okay, they can properly plan out the stories and whatnot. They didn't do that with Ronda. Now, you can't expect that. The problem is, and why I think that might fall on WWE, was if they promised her that from the get-go, which it sounds like they did, we promised you that you can be involved with the process every step of the way. That was never going to happen. That might have just been one of those false Vince McMahon promises. And again, she shits on him, as she should, because he's a fucking monster and a disgusting human being. And she mentions the shit that came out about him in 2022 and all that other sort of stuff later on in the book, because this goes all the way up until her SummerSlam match last year. So this is not an old book that doesn't cover her second run. It's not like it gets cuts off right when she returns. No, it ends with the SummerSlam match. And as far as the way that it's written, it is a well-written book. She uses like a lot of big words, and she narrates her own audiobook, by the way, too, which is cool. Hardcore Holly did not. Becky Lynch does, I know, her own book. A lot of people do their own book, Ronda Rousey included, which was cool. She uses a lot of like weird phrases and weird like big words that sound odd in audio version, but on paper it probably, sounds better or looks better or whatever when you write it out as opposed to saying it out loud. Sometimes when you say stuff out loud, it doesn't, translate as well. As a writer, I can relate to that. But, she covers a lot of different stuff, and she was very frustrated. Like, she knew, even with that first run, and I can go into a greater detail about the stuff that she talked about. And I wish I had taken notes every step of the way, because there was a lot that she discussed. Like different matches and different incidents, which I thought were interesting. But another takeaway that wasn't really all that shocking from this book is that Ronda Rousey really does not like wrestling fans, and more so the fact that she feels that they're entitled, which wrestling fans absolutely are, I'm not denying that. But like, she got booed for one fucking match, and she flipped her shit. She was upset that night, she was upset in this book 5-6 years later. It's like, get the fuck over it. She got booed one night. And yeah, it was her home state of California. This is Survivor Series 2018. Remember that? The match with Charlotte? When they sided with Charlotte. For whatever reason, too, I don't know. Because Ronda was very over prior to that point. She was over even after that. But maybe because they thought she was boring as a one-sided dominant character. I don't know. That was the turning point, that was that match. And maybe because they saw Becky kind of becoming the more over of the two. That honestly was probably a big factor as well. They just started to turn organically on Ronda. And she like flipped her shit. She's like, I'm done. Like, again, she sounds like kind of a fucking baby at a lot of different points in this book. To her credit, she did want to turn heel, and they said not the right time, we got to wait on it, and they did turn her heel closer to Mania. A lot later than they should have, but it was better than nothing. They talk about the Becky feud and how the match was good but not great, which is true. It was not a great match. It was good, but it went on way too late. They never really clicked. It was a well-worked match. It was great to see them in the main event. They deserved that main event. Charlotte should not have been in that fucking match. They botched the finish. Ronda was like struggling to get her shoulders up, which she was supposed to make it look like that, but she actually did get her shoulders up, so it kind of fucked up the finish, and it was anticlimactic. It's not like Becky wasn't supposed to win on that. Apparently that was the plan. I thought that was fucked up. No, that was the actual plan. It's just that she made it look worse. That was Ronda's fault, apparently. I think she admits to that in the book. So again, she goes away. She leaves in 2019, and she didn't even know if she wanted to come back because she was burned on the whole wrestling thing. But she also didn't want her career to end on the note that it did. She wanted to go out on a higher note or, work with Shayna some more, which she didn't do the first time. And Shayna wasn't even on the main roster at that point. She didn't get called up until 2020. So, she talks about that a lot and whatever. So she comes back in 2022. She has the baby in 2021. And she knew, again, and she's mentioned this elsewhere before, she knew as soon as she had that baby, she can come back. All right, I can be back in the ring within 3 or 4 months. And to her credit, that's exactly what she did. She got back in the ring, returned to the Rumble, won the Rumble. Again, I would love to know what the original plan would have been if it wasn't Ronda returning and winning. I don't know how far out they knew that. Ronda knew she was coming back. Maybe WWE did know as well a couple months out. I'm not sure. Bianca did end up facing Becky at Mania that year and won the Raw Women's Championship. And maybe they could have had Bianca win rather. Bianca had won the year prior, so she would have had to win twice, which is great, and I was kind of hoping she would, but she didn't. Rhea was not in a top spot at that point. The only other person would have been Sasha Banks, who had never won a Rumble before, and it seemed like her and Charlotte was the Mania match. And Sasha was gone for a little while, came back for the Rumble, got tossed in 10 minutes by Zelina Vega, who at that point, and still kind of is, not really a big star in the roster, which was shocking. And it really didn't lead to anything. They did go for the tag titles on Mania, but they never really referenced, it was because, I threw you out of the Rumble. Like, that was never a factor with her and Naomi. So that was fucking random. But Ronda won that Rumble, which I like that Rumble, honestly. But she came back, and the reason why she didn't, embrace the audience, she was a babyface when she came back. But she didn't want to embrace the audience to give them the satisfaction of enjoying that moment with her. And they gave her a positive reaction. It's like, lady, what the fuck? They're embracing you, and you're still not going to give them, you want to be cheered so bad. She clearly cares a lot about being liked. Maybe in general, I don't know, but in wrestling, she really did care. And she wanted to be a heel, and she's a better heel, but the problem is her mic skills were awful. Not at any point in this book did she acknowledge the fact that her promos sucked. And yes, a lot of the material that she was given to work with sucked during the first run and the second run. The material was not good. But honestly, I feel like they gave her some... again, she's very biased because it's her book. And I don't work there, so again, it's just my own speculation. I feel like they gave her a lot of opportunities to impress on the mic when Triple H was running things and Vince was kind of gone for a little while in late 2022 by letting her either riff on the mic, do her own thing, go off the cuff, and she still was not good. They turned her heel, and she still was not good. They would actually cheer her as a heel sometimes because she was acting like a stone-cold babyface and the whole Adam Pearce bullshit. The Charlotte match, again, she doesn't acknowledge that. The Charlotte match in Mania was not good. It was not a good match. The WrestleMania Backlash match was better, but the first match in Mania at 22 or 38 in 22 was not fucking good. Again, she just doesn't acknowledge a lot of these things as to why her run was not good. Yes, the company was to blame on a lot of things. They didn't give her what they promised her. They did shortchange her creatively in the sense that when she came back, which that was really interesting, she said that she wanted to work with Charlotte and Becky. She's like, I want to elevate the women's division. She did during the first run. The second run, she did not elevate it at all. She did absolutely fucking nothing to elevate that division the second time around. Whether that's her fault or the company's fault, it's more so the company's fault. But, other than Raquel, who kind of got a little over from working with Ronda, and they had some good matches on SmackDown on SmackDown, I think, for the championship. That was it. Shotzi did not benefit from working with Ronda. Liv Morgan was worse off after working with Ronda. And that wasn't Ronda's fault if Ronda wanted to put her over. But the company did that feud no favors. The feud sucked. But Liv was not better off. Shotzi was not better off. Shayna, she put her over clean at SummerSlam. Shayna is the only person to cleanly defeat Ronda Rousey in WWE one-on-one. That was the company's fault. They did not follow up on that at all. And again, she thinks of that match. She loved the match, and that was really all that mattered to her, and that's great. I'm glad she enjoyed her last match with Shayna. I didn't even really mind the match. I thought it was cool they were doing an MMA rules match. And she did say that there was the idea to do a fight pit. She thought it was dumb. She watched the fight pit, thought it was kind of cool. And then they went back on the fight pit because of a logistic issue. So they just kept it vague with the MMA rules without clearly defining what it was and all this other shit. Vince was still creatively involved back at SummerSlam last year, so that's why. That makes a whole lot of sense. She talks a lot about Heyman being the liaison between her and Triple H and her and Vince. Heyman has always been kind of involved with creative, especially during the second run that she was in WWE. But again, the MMA rules match with Shayna, she put over Shayna clean. No one gave a fuck about that match. And the only reason why they would cheer for Shayna was because Ronda was so unlikable. But Shayna wasn't a babyface. They never turned her. They didn't follow up at all. So again, that's not really Ronda's fault. But they should have known that match was not going to work with the WWE audience. She said in this thing that she had nods to previous fights of hers with the liver shot. She had the head kick knockout, which is how she got knocked out in her first or second fight. I forget. The first or second loss or whatever that she had in UFC. She had a nod to Boss Rutan and Ken Shamrock, an old fight. No one gave a shit. No one cared. That's the first I've heard of any of that she mentioned, and it's cool, the little Easter eggs. I'm sure there were some MMA fans in the audience that understood that. But for the greater WWE audience at that SummerSlam pay-per-view, they did not give a fuck. And the match killed the crowd for a good while. That show died a death after that match because it just wasn't really that good. It just didn't work with the WWE audience. A fight pit probably would have been better. Logistically, I don't know why it wouldn't have worked out. Maybe because, I don't know, they were in a stadium. Because the other fight pits, they did 2 in NXT. They did do 1 in WWE, but they did it in an arena. That's different. An arena is smaller. In a stadium, you might not be able to do it. So that's probably why they didn't do it. Her end goal was always to put over Shayna on the way out and team with her, which they did. No one cared, though. By that point, Ronda was not special, and Shayna had been so beaten down, no one gave a shit. So their tag title run, which was always brief, but it was good, it lasted a month. No one cared. And the split with Shayna turning on Ronda, their promos, to their credit, again, I say that a lot, but in their defense, the promos they did going into the pay-per-view, which were Ronda and Shayna's ideas, primarily Ronda's, they were great. But the split came out of nowhere. The logic made sense where Shayna felt like, she was being overshadowed by Ronda and whatnot. But there was not even a sense of any issue between the two for years. It came completely out of nowhere. They were the fucking tag team champions. Why would she just throw that away in a random match with no dissension? It's just so fucking random. She also had this idea where, again, another big thing from the book was that her end goal, she worked with Charlotte at First Mania back. It wasn't good, but she also wanted to have the match with Becky. Ronda wanted that match. I don't know if Becky wanted that match. Becky's done a lot of interviews and promoting the book. I didn't ask her about that. I think she may have been asked about it. I don't know. Maybe she did. Maybe I think she was asked about it. I don't remember. I didn't ask about it because I have this question now. I don't know if she mentioned it herself. But Ronda wanted that match with Becky, probably just to put her over. And they did not have any plans for that match. She asked WWE Creative about it for months, up until the summer before Mania in 2023. She'd asked them ad nauseum, when are we doing the match? When are we starting? And then when they got to the Rumble, they were like, oh, there's not enough time. They clearly just didn't want to do it. Clearly. And also there was some creative, mess going on with Vince being back, so that might have messed up things. That was probably a factor. But she got really fucking pissed at Triple H and, cussed him out, and maybe not cussed him out, but she definitely yelled at him, she said. And for some reason, she could remember every single word that she told him. I guess if you're in that situation, you would remember every word that you exchanged, but she was pretty detailed in what she said to him, which I thought was interesting. But she was pissed that they let that one slip and they didn't do the match. But she wanted to do a Hollywood backlot brawl with Becky throughout the show, which again would not have worked. No one wanted to fucking see that. I appreciate the creativity. I don't think that would have worked. And Triple H was like, it didn't work back then either. It was cool in retrospect, but it's not feasible. She's like, no, it would be spread throughout the show. I get what she's saying. It just would not have worked. It would not have worked. If you wanted to do maybe an actual match, but here's the problem, and I wanted to see that match too. By 2023, Ronda was not an attraction. Ronda, even though she was champion a couple months before Mania, was not as special as she thought she was, or at least she once was. She just wasn't. That's a combination of just her losing her luster, her being gone for so long, the booking being shit. She wasn't really delivering it all on the mic or in the ring. Her character work sucked. She wasn't special. Becky didn't really have a great year in 2023 early on. The stuff with Bayley, they were still doing, and they could have wrapped that up to do the Ronda match, because Ronda was involved in a WrestleMania showcase match. Becky was doing a 6-woman tag. They could have easily done that match in Mania. But it wasn't really necessary. Becky gains nothing at that point from beating Ronda again. Ronda doesn't really benefit. It wasn't really an important match to do. I get why she would want to do it, but at that point, the excitement was gone. Becky wasn't really protected at all. She was doing a whole lot of nothing. She was feuding with Bayley, cool, but that wasn't really a great feud. She kind of felt like she was resting on her laurels a little bit. Ronda was certainly not special whatsoever. I just don't think that would have really worked. So they told her, we're going to have her drop the championship at the Rumble and then win the Elimination Chamber and work with Bianca at Mania and lose, because Bianca was the Raw Women's Champion. Ronda said no. Ronda said, I'm teaming with Shayna. So she stuck to her guns and she got what she wanted. The Bianca match, that might have been good. They never ended up doing that match. That just also would have been so fucking random, because Ronda was on SmackDown at that point, and it would have been a smack. I mean, the brand split shit didn't really matter, I guess, but I don't know. Asuka and Bianca we had seen before, but I mean, Asuka had just done the new look and shit, and she lost, which was stupid. But, and she ended up winning the championship soon after, but her losing at Mania was dumb. Ronda and Bianca, I don't know how good that would have been. I would have been curious to see it, but I'm not upset that they didn't do it. But she didn't want to do it, so she dropped the championship to Charlotte. That was her choice. That was her call, was to lose it on that SmackDown in early 2022. Or 2023, rather. Or I think it was late 2022. I think it was the last SmackDown of 2022. She talks about how Lacey Evans was supposed to win Money in the Bank in the summer of 2022, which we all expected, and then they changed their minds because Vince wanted not this blonde, but another blonde to win it, and Liv Morgan, because Vince is a fucking weirdo. This was right before he got ousted from the company, quote unquote. And she told Lacey, like, oh, has anyone told you? And she's like, no. And she's like, oh, you're supposed to win Money in the Bank. I can't wait to drop the belt to you, blah, blah, blah. And they changed plans. And she even acknowledges that was her fuck up, but why did she do that? Why would you tell Lacey before WWE did? Because they weren't going to go with her anyway. I know they were supposed to, but it's not like they told her and then they changed plans. She may have never known had Ronda not said anything. So I thought that was pretty dumb. She talked a lot about the creative process with Triple H and with Vince just being an idiot, not really respecting women, which is true. Bruce Pritchard being a fucking clown. She does not have any love lost for Bruce Pritchard. She mentions Johnny being an idiot. And she said in that interview with Rick that she was going to go more in on Vince and Bruce and Johnny specifically, but had to cut out a lot of stuff because she had to make a certain word limit or something. So she was going to have a lot more bad blood on them, a lot more, many more negative words on them, but she had to cut a lot of it out, so I would love to see a sequel with her completely shitting on those clowns. Excuse me. But yeah, that's the general crux of what she discussed in the book. I just thought it was really, really interesting. It's worth reading for all that stuff alone, where she talks about all of this, and I'm spoiling a lot of it, but it is worth reading and hearing in her own words in the Audible version. And again, what she wanted to do and what they wouldn't let her do, and match times getting cut, and Shayna also being frustrated. She talked about Aaliyah and how, rumors were being spread about her from Bruce, and that's shitty. But at the same time, she's like, oh, we never saw Aaliyah again after that. Yeah, because Aaliyah should not have been on the main roster. Triple H took over, and she wasn't good. So we took her off the show. Oh, she was one of the nicest women in the locker room. Cool. She sucked. Aaliyah seemed like one of the nicest people on that show. Great. But they kept her under contract for way too long, and I'm not saying they should have fired her. I mean, they should have let her go over some people. I get that. But they ended up letting her go, and she has done absolutely nothing since then. She was fired in September. She has been cleared to go since January. She has not touched a wrestling ring on television since then. Maybe she's done indies, and I have no idea. But again, the idea that, oh, they should have done more with Aaliyah, that's not what she said exactly. I get that. But she was kind of implying, why would they take her off TV? Yeah, it is a coincidence that incident happened, and then she was promptly taken off of television, and they didn't use her for another year. But they had every reason to take her off TV because, again, she just was not good. I don't know why they won the tag titles to begin with, her and Raquel. That made no sense. Damage Control should have just won it from the get-go. That was stupid. But she was really close with Liv, apparently. She talked a lot about that. I mean, for as much... I don't know. I thought her and Natalya were close because they were very close on TV. But she didn't really talk about Natalya at all in the book. She talked a lot about Liv and how close they were. Probably more so during the second run than the first. But I thought that was interesting. Yeah, just a lot of interesting stuff throughout the book. Those are really the main points. And her leaving. I mean, again, could she come back at some point? Sure. But it sounds like she also had an issue with Triple H's creative vision. And I don't really blame Triple H for that because they have much bigger stars. She's been gone since August, and the women's division has been no worse off since she left. I have not sat in my chair here in the last 8 months since she left the company saying, man, I really wish we got that Ronda Rousey match. Or, man, I really wish Ronda Rousey was back. I was saying that when she left the first time in 2019. After seeing that second run, which was a complete and utter fucking failure. Yeah, she won the SmackDown Women's title twice, and the tag title's cool. But a lot of it didn't mean shit. And a lot of it wasn't really all that good. It wasn't awful, but it was very disappointing. It was not the same Ronda from a few years earlier. And it had nothing to do with the fact that she had a kid. It's not like, oh, she had a kid, she's washed up. No. It's more so like they just didn't know how to use her. It seemed like she just didn't give a fuck, and she even said that towards the end she didn't care. So clearly she was not putting in any effort at all. other than with Shayna. And that match also did not go over well. It was just one steaming pile of shit from start to finish was that second run. And the first run had its issues, but she felt like a bigger star at that point than she did during that second run. So I know I said a lot. Check out the book for yourself. It's called Our Fight by Ronda Rousey. It's a very interesting read. I know I had a lot to say about the book. I just thought it was really interesting in general. A lot of stuff I either missed when people were reporting about it a couple months ago, or just because the fact that Becky's book also came out around the same time, so people were talking more about that one. And again, I'll get around to reading it. I've read a lot, I heard a lot of the stories about what she talked about in that book. I've talked to her about the book. The Ronda thing was more so uncharted territory, and I learned a lot. I thought it was interesting. It definitely, hooked me by the end. I found out she's also a big pot smoker. Maybe that was also well documented, but she's a big fucking smoker. She talked about smoking pot a lot in the book, so that was interesting. Nothing wrong with it. Just thought it was interesting. She loves to just hang out and do nothing. She seems chill, like as a person, other than the fact that she sounds like a baby at a lot of points during the book, especially during her UFC career. It sounds like she can't take a loss. She comes across like a very entitled baby at many, many different points in the book, and that she thinks that she is, and she is special. She is special. I'm not saying she didn't make history and she's not good. It just sounds like she has a very inflated opinion and ego of herself compared to other people. I don't know. Just another books that I've read, which was, again, interesting. Nothing really surprising, and it kind of goes along with what people have said about her, but I thought it was interesting. So, a good book to check out nonetheless. She talks about doing other movies, and apparently she got her screenplay greenlit, which she talked about in this book, I think. That came out recently, where she mentioned that a screenplay was greenlit recently that she wrote, which is cool. I mean, that's apparently one of her passions. I don't know what her plans now are. She's a big farmer, so she talked about her farming stuff, and she's a mother, so congrats to her on that, of course. And she's got other cool ventures. Just wrestling clearly is not it. I know she did the Ring of Honor match, which went nowhere. She just wanted the team with Marina Shafir. I don't really think the AEW women's division needs her, honestly. I don't really think she'd be a boost to that division. She's a bigger name than like Saraya was when she came in. I think Mercedes Moné's I'm not even the biggest Sasha Banks fan, but I think she's a much better and bigger get than fucking Ronda Rousey. And if Ronda Rousey were to come in, she would have to overtake the Tonys and the Mercedes and the Willows. And I just don't want to see that. Because if Ronda comes in, it's just another woman. Who's going to care? And what's the point? So having her just, maybe work indies, because it seems like she likes doing that shit. Maybe she can kind of rekindle her passion for pro wrestling through that. Through avenues of indie wrestling and stuff like that. But thank you guys for checking out my book review for Ronda Rousey's Our Fight. Our second book review in a month. Unprecedented, I know. My last book review was last month. Check it out if you haven't already. The Hardcore Truth by Hardcore Holly, Bob Holly. Very good book. Really much enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed it. I thought that was a better book than this. I was listening to it and I'm like, she just doesn't come across well. But that book was, he also has a very inflated opinion of himself as well. So that's not, again, wrestlers have egos. That's just the way that it works. Not everyone, but probably most of them. I don't know if that's a broad statement, but it just kind of seems that way to me. But that's just my opinion. But I thought it was a good book, and it's worth checking out. So like I said, when I get a chance, I'll probably read Becky's book next. That should be the next book review. It might not be anytime soon, but when I do get a chance to check it out and read it in full, I'll have the book review up here on the channel. That might not be until next year, but just keep an eye out for it. Subscribe, like, comment, all that great stuff. Thank you guys. Have an awesome one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.